Greetings and welcome to Mediocre Minis. Today, spooky season continues with the Zombie Wolf. Yet again, this is a mini from Reaper Miniatures, and you guessed it, I got this as part of the Bones 5 Kickstarter. This is totally not in a way an excuse to go through all my miniatures and get them painted. Yeah. Now this miniature starts off how many of them do with a prime of dark neutral gray. Once that was dried, we moved on to the base coat. So to start off, I gave the entire miniature a coat of gray. So at this point, I decided I wanted to work on the fur first and get that completed or as close to completion as possible before I did anything else on the mini. And a big reason for that is I wanted to do a lot of dry brushing. And with dry brushing, sometimes it can get messy, it's a little bit harder to be precise. So I didn't want to work on an area of the model and then have it be complete and then have to go back and fix mistakes whenever the dry brushing takes place. So I decided to do all the fur all at once. But to start off with that, I gave everything a dry brush of the gray plus a small amount of off-white. This is just to get some of the highlights going. It's okay if you dry brush a little bit too heavy in some areas and a little bit lighter in other areas. Fur can be all different shades. It doesn't have to be uniform. So if you make some mistakes and some areas get a little bit too heavy of a dry brush, it's not too big of a problem. And then I gave another second dry brush with a little bit more off-white into that mix. That made everything kind of bright and kind of stark, which was fine, because then I gave the miniature all-over wash of our black wash. Once the black wash dried, I then went back in, this time with just the gray out of the pot to reestablish that base coat. Again, this is all done dry brushing with a simple cheap brush that I got, I believe, from a dollar store pack. Again, once the dry brushing that stage was done, I added a little bit more off-white into the mix and went back again. Now, it does still look pretty bright and stark as compared to what the rest of the model is going to look like, but we toned that down in a little bit here. All right, moving on to the more, we'll say, fleshy bits, or bits where there really isn't any fur. This is definitely including some of the bone areas as well. So I started off with the base tone gray, and I added in a small amount of purple into that mix. Now, in the first spooky season, I did a zombie, and then I used blue, and this is just another variation of that, using purple for a cold undead flesh. Then I kind of just slapped that over different areas in the model where I think the skin would be more raw, more exposed, definitely around where the bones are poking out. Thinking other spots of what other areas would be a little bit more worn, such as some of the paws, and I did around the face as well. Now, to highlight it from there, I took the gray and added in a small amount of red. It's a kind of a weird, raw, sickly looking color, and I think that kind of worked out great, at least for what I was going for. That while this clearly is not a wolf that is alive as we know it, you know, it's still a little raw and still a little banged up, I guess. Anyway, I kept the mix relatively thin and just added more red over time and added more and less different areas, a little bit splotchy here and there, adding it to, again, say, the paws, because the paws can get banged up. Around the mouth, it can get banged up. Just any area where I think the skin would start being exposed. And during this time, I decided just to make the eyes red. I originally thought maybe I'd keep them black or make them black, but I decided to dab some red in there, and it ended up looking kind of cool. And the rule of cool is always the most important rule to follow, so I just kept the eyes red. Now finally, there is some of the bone and teeth areas. For instance, the bone sticking out of the wolf itself, his teeth, and the claws on his paws. And for all these, I gave it a simple base coat of our off-white. I took a lot of care and patience going around the rib cage and the spine areas. This is mostly I didn't want to get the off-white anywhere else because I was pretty happy with the rest of the miniature. Once the off-white was dry, then I used the sepia wash to give everything a nice shade. But being careful not to get too much of the sepia wash anywhere else. If it's splotched other places, again, that's fine. A little bit messy is acceptable. And then finally gave the bones a small highlights here and there with the off-white once again, but kept it pretty thin and used it a little bit sparingly. Didn't use too much of it. Okay, and for the base, I didn't want to do yet another gray base with some black wash on it. That was getting boring, and also the wolf was mostly gray anyways. I didn't want to blend in even more. So I gave it a brown base. Base coated the base with the dark brown paint that we have. And once the dark brown was dry, then I gave it a black wash. Once the wash was dry, I then went in with the light brown and highlighted different areas a little bit splotchy, and tried to pick out some different details in the base with that. Nothing too crazy, just a little bit here and there. Kind of like how that kind of looked in the end, almost like cracked dry earth. Kinda, not the best, but it kind of gets the point across. And then of course finished up the model with a black base rim. So there we have it. Number 4 in our spooky season minis is now complete. So what do you think? Enjoy the mini? Like the mini? What could I have done differently with the mini? What are your thoughts? Thanks again for watching. I really do appreciate it. This is Mediocre Minis, and may the divine light your path.